In this demo, we are going to show you an enterprise search application built with and powered by Fusion. We are actually using real raw data from various systems within Lucidworks. And we're going to start by logging in as John, who's one of our engineers. Let's imagine he's being asked to help out with this demo. The first thing you'll see is the dashboard. It acts like John's gateway to all the information in the system and is there to proactively assist and notify him of anything important. You will find the search bar prominently positioned at the top. This is the primary interface for queries and questions, which are then analyzed by our NLP engine. Just below it, you can see that by constantly analyzing signals from the application, we can display the queries that Fusion thinks John is most likely to execute at this point in time. This is continually evaluated and refined based on whether he accepts suggestions or not. Below the banner, you can see a mixture of curated and suggested content. The first section shows an aggregated collection of everything that John has been looking at or working on recently. Next to it, you'll see John's schedule combined with the documents he typically opens around that time of day. And John is a member of the engineering department, so it's important for him to stay on top of the team's GitHub activity. The content shown in the newsfeed is determined by department. So as an example, this would be replaced by a Twitter feed for members of the marketing team. Towards the bottom, we can see other ways for John to start exploring the data. Fusion has automatically categorized every document, person, and conversation by department, and we're presenting them here to offer alternative entry points for data discovery. Lastly, towards the bottom of the page, we're showing more curated suggestions based on John's interaction and things others in his role have found interesting, with finally a broad trend analysis for what's happening right now across the whole system. But let's kick off by searching for Gartner. Before John hits search, Fusion tries to point him in the right direction. We can see the documents that are most relevant to his keyword, quick access to past searches that are similar, and suggested variations of the query. But he just wants to get a broad idea of what's out there, so he hits search. So here's our results page, which is showing all the documents and any members of staff associated with the term Gartner. Note that Fusion enforces any security access rules defined in the various source systems to ensure that John will only see documents to which he has access. This is generally referred to as mapped or early binding security, which is the most performant way to provide secure search. So what have we got here? Above the matching documents, we can see a promoted expert, a member of staff that Fusion recognizes as having some relevant experience or having authored content related to the keyword. Over on the left, we have our facets that John can use to refine the results, giving him insights into what the content is about. He may, for example, just be interested in recent documents. Over on the right, you'll find the search term presented in a few wider contexts. Fusion has, for example, recognized that most of the documents and people associated with Gartner belong to our marketing department, and so John is given the option of jumping directly to their page. Fusion also concluded that Gartner is an entity in its own right, and so has brought back additional up-to-the-minute facts directly from Wikipedia. Similarly, certain queries will bring back information from other sources such as YouTube, Twitter, or Wolfram. Below this, Fusion is also bringing in information from Slack, which at Lucidworks has basically replaced email. But this data being conversational is presented in a slightly different way. Slack conversations show latest mentions of Gartner across the public channels. We show the people who name-check Gartner the most. And finally, channels prioritizes overall mentions of the subject to direct John to the right discussions. Before we continue, let's have a look at how you can create and manage an application like this. We'll log into Fusion. If you're new to Fusion, you have the option of using a wizard to help you quickly build an application like this. But in this case, we'll look at the enterprise search one we're going to be using in this demo. Fusion provides a wealth of features for managing the entire search experience. It gives you analytics, insights, and dashboards to tell you how the applications are being used. And it gives you the ability to manage all aspects of the user experience. Let's take, for example, signals, which we touched upon earlier, which is where we capture all aspects of a user's interaction with one of our systems. The first thing we'll do is have a look at data sources. This list represents all the connectors we've configured for this application. If we pick one of them, it will show all the settings that are available for a typical connector. And scrolling down, we can see that there are quite a few of them, but many of the more complex aspects, such as enabling security, can be distilled down to something as simple as a checkbox. Once we're happy with our settings, we can choose whether to run it immediately, on a schedule, or constantly monitor the data sources for changes. Now let's look at how you'd configure relevancy calculations for a particular query. If you open the Query Workbench, it gives you the ability to test your keyword terms and alter how documents are ranked. Let's, for example, load up how we handle all queries for experts. You can see here what the results would look like on the right, and you can test it for a set of particular terms. You can see here, for example, who the experts would be for the term Gartner. On the left, you can see all the stages that a query will pass through before it's returned to the application. At the beginning here, you can, for example, see how we boost a particular result by location. In this case, that might be relevant because we favor people who are located close to us, either geographically or by department. But now let's go back to our application. So far, so good, but let's look for something a little bit more specific, like use case documents for Gartner. In our search suggestions here, we see the most significant documents relating to the query at the top. And in the results, we see that the same documents appear at the top of the list. John is seeing a few documents here, so by saving this search, he can rerun it at any time or opt to be alerted when new documents appear. Now let's have a look at one of these results. You'll notice that we didn't go directly to the document, but we are right away given a very legible document preview, key metadata, and a link to open it in Google Drive. Paging through, John thinks he's picked a winner. So he bookmarks this document so he can quickly go back to it at any point in the future. We could, of course, have configured the app to open documents directly, but by creating a dedicated topic page for documents, we're able to offer additional context and further avenues of exploration, like this truncated summary of information about the author. Fusion has also automatically extracted the subjects that it believes the document is about. Clicking on one of these subjects will launch a new search focused on a particular topic. Finally, we can see that Fusion uses all the information it can gather from both the index and the user behavior to algorithmically suggest other documents that may be similar to this one. John recognizes that Aaliyah is a key stakeholder in the project and clicks through to her detail page. Here, Fusion offers yet another lens on the data. It surfaces everything we know about Aaliyah and the content she's produced within Lucidworks. You can also see her most frequently accessed documents, her areas of expertise, who Aaliyah reports to, and everybody that reports to her, and other people Fusion has deemed to have similar profiles. We show her profile picture from Slack. Keep in mind that people are probably more likely to add their picture to a chat-focused application, so as a result, in our system, there are very few people without one. Below, we can see her department, location, and her real-time online status, as well as other contact information. Finally, Fusion looks to find common ground between John and Aaliyah. In this instance, they are both skilled in Fusion, but other people may be linked by shared skills, reporting lines, or geography. Under the right circumstances, this icebreaker information will also appear in the recommended experts panel on the search page. Now, John is in the UK, Aaliyah is in San Francisco, so she is offline right now. But by jumping over to the department detail page, John might find others that can help him. In a similar fashion, this topic page offers a bird's eye view of everything that's going on in the marketing department. So for example, we can see here the team members, their skills, department leadership, active conversations, along with the latest and greatest documents they've written. Now, if we imagine John is trying to find out more about our machine learning capabilities, John can narrow down the list of people by skills. Okay, so there are 4 experts in marketing, but John recognizes Laurel, who is our documentation manager. Before John rings her, he can quickly check to see her latest mentions on the subject. So he heads over to the Fusion view of the documentation channel. This view shows all of Laurel's contributions to the channel, and we can even search within her timeline. Okay, so Laurel has mentioned an interesting document here, so we'll take a look at that. But before we do, we should mention that all the pages within this application are completely responsive and work across all devices and screen sizes. But let's just check out the document. We click the link and open it in Google Drive. So far, we've been looking at a typical enterprise search application, but we'd also like to show you what a different application for a more specialized audience could look like. This enterprise application that we recently put together for one of our pharmaceutical customers uses structured data. In this case, Fusion has crawled and indexed information for about 250,000 publicly available clinical trials. We're looking at exactly the same instance of Fusion, at an application built from exactly the same components and on the same principles, but one offering a very different outcome and experience. This dashboard, similar to the previous one, offers a 40,000-foot view for the 250,000 trials. It gives us the information in aggregate and lots of avenues of exploration, such as therapeutic areas, companies involved, intervention types, drugs, and so on. So let's say we want to explore procedures for breast cancer. We can select those, and the dashboard will recalculate the graphs it needs to. Now let's look further at the trials that are currently open and recruiting. So in just 3 clicks, I've gone from 250,000 trials down to just about 100. But that's not all. We can go beyond the dashboard and get a more granular view of the information that makes up the trials to further filter them and get closer to the facts we're after. Now, in an application like this, which is clearly constructed for a highly specialized user, we can afford a bit more complexity than we would get away with elsewhere. So as a result, we can offer quite a few controls and details on each trial. Note, for example, that in this application, each facet might contain thousands of entries, so it's handy to be able to accurately search within them, for example, for the trials of this kind that Amgen is sponsoring. In this case, a needle that's a real needle in the haystack. True to the pattern, clicking on the trial will give me a Fusion-curated 360-degree view of the trial. Alongside the overview, Fusion is proactively searching for and returning valuable insights for me. For example, which drugs involved are commonly trialed alongside others, or commonly associated conditions. This is rather like the panel that tells me what I have in common with my colleagues. I didn't ask for this information, but it is of value to me. And I can initiate a new search from here with this trial as a basis, or explore some of the other related insights. And it doesn't end here. Fusion can facilitate a very natural journey of discovery, allowing me to navigate between the related topic pages directly from this one. And that's what these small icons represent. A way to explore other trials, conditions, drugs, and sponsors. So let's take a look at the company behind the trial. So here's a completely dynamic view of Amgen as constructed by Fusion from what is an inherently flat list of clinical trials. It shows us that they've conducted about 1,000 studies, which we can filter by date and so on. It surfaces other companies with similar interests and tells us that based on the studies, they're particularly focused on anemia, breast cancers, and something called multiple myeloma. So again, true to form, here's everything Fusion can extrapolate from this set about plasma cell myeloma. The image is automatically selected from Wikipedia on the fly, as is the condition summary at the top. And we can see that the most trialed product for this condition is called dexamethasone. And again, we can jump to that as a lens. So none of these entities exist in the index. They're different Fusion-constructed lenses on that single flat list of trials, computed by Fusion while bringing in supplemental information from trusted sources. So in stark contrast to more typical dashboard applications, Fusion can not only provide a highly tailored app experience for a particular audience, minimize training and cognitive load, but it can also facilitate a powerful journey of discovery. A journey of discovery with seamless transition between the aggregate, a 40,000-foot view, through progressively more detail of automatically extracted facts with filtering down to the individual objects and facts of interest, and back up again. That is the power of smart data.